Then again, there was much more to learn and so many things to discover. What if this was the reality, and that other existence where I lived on a daily basis was not? They explained certain concepts and ideas which were still far removed from my then limited comprehension of things. I realized that I did not know so many things about life and the universe, although the language presented no problems. Whatever they spoke, and whatever the language, I understood as if I was knowledgeable of it. Admittedly, the whole experience made me feel very suspicious about the realism of my then state. As far as I was concerned, this was still a beautiful dream sequence, and I was floating between the real and the unreal. I was unsure which to accept. Then I heard a resonant voice telling me that there was no need for any concern, as this was my only reality at this time, and it was something humanity's multi-belief systems would never accept, but there would come a time when they would all discover its correctness as scientifically proven. Was that once again my childhood friend about whom some others laughed whenever I made mention of him? As I matured, I learned to be more cautious in all my associations. Some other people came to the fore and spoke to me as if I had previously known them, trying to remind me of things and events I was not absolutely certain about and could not remember. Then one of them mentioned that when the time came, I would certainly remember the past as it was, but I wondered how could one remember a past which had never happened? If something cannot be remembered, how can it be real? On the other hand, do we remember everything from our past as we grow older? Do you remember the Christmas of 10 or 25 years ago in detail? Why is this so? How can we live or consider ourselves alive when we have no memories? However, this I remember so clearly. There were little children, some of whom were holding small pets. One had a cute piglet, another had a puppy, and yet another had a little lizard in their hands. They were obviously introducing them to me, and I was unsure whether this was a product of my own creative imagination. Yet the experience was so real that I felt completely confused about the reality. But do we not create our own realities, see what we want to see, and discard everything else? I patted those beautiful creatures to the children's joy. A young lady approached me, calling me her dear son. Then a young gentleman came closer and said, "Welcome back, dear one." I could not comprehend the familiarity, and thought that perhaps I had come to this place accidentally, and in truth the whole experience appeared to be too foreign. Was it perhaps, as I thought before, wishful thinking on my part? Had I perhaps jumped into a parallel world? I remember so clearly when they invited me for a welcome home feast, and declared that they would not accept no for an answer. This was at Christmas time anyway, and having accepted the invitation, if I was late home, I could tell Magda that I had been invited by friends whom I had not seen for a long time. That would be a genuine excuse. However, she would still be very upset about my thoughtlessness, for she would prefer to spend time with me just reading the Bible. I was offered a typical cup of English tea, complete with milk and sugar, presented in the most traditional way. It went down really well, with a beautiful chocolate sponge cake. I thoroughly enjoyed it, although I prefer to have chocolate in blocks. I was asked to relax a while, as I had come from a long way out somewhere, and they had a few things to speak of. That somewhere did not make any sense, yet I was not overly anxious about going home soon anyway, as we were not able to enjoy a social event, which everybody else around the world enjoyed at this time of year, for the witnesses considered it pagan, and we were not encouraged to take part in the absolutely sinful practices of the world, like celebrating Christmas, Easter, or birthdays. How strange it was not to celebrate the joy of coming to a wonderful world, and how strange not to praise our mother's ordeal in carrying us in their bodies for several months, from the time of conception to giving birth to us. It was like a great celebration here, and could one just relax in this peaceful environment? My words failed to express. Perhaps just the word love comes closer to describing it in some limited fashion. Then I said to one of these lovely people that probably it was time for me to wake up. They all looked somewhat puzzled, and after a short silence, I heard them say, as in a choir, "Not yet, dearest one, not yet. There is much to catch up, much to see and discover." Another voice told me that there was still a long time to go. I wondered what it was to see and discover. They spoke, and I listened, but their lips did not always move. It was a phenomenon I had rarely experienced, as when, for example, ventriloquist performed an act without moving his lips. However, this was new, although I was knowledgeable about telepathy, and when still a child was able to sense my brother's thoughts, and he could sense mine. This was totally different. I did not want to be a burden to anybody, so I thought of leaving these peaceful and loving people. Noticing my thoughts, they all exclaimed that I was always welcome, and they loved having my company. This started in me an intense sense of joy, while all were frolicking, and there was a feeling of happiness in the air. Everyone seemed so happy, as if their prodigal son had returned home, even if it was for a short period of time. I heard someone say that they did not worry about time on this side of existence. I was not going to worry about what was meant with this side of existence, as I was certain that it would be revealed soon enough. However, the whole event was so real to me, it almost convinced me that this was a physical reality. Everything I heard, said, or touched felt incredibly physical. I could not detect any violent thoughts, for what I felt were thoughts of acceptance and unconditional love. There were no religious thoughts to be detected either, and I was not going to question it. All their expressions were pleasant and kind. Interestingly also, I was sure that those people of the kindest kind in turn felt my thoughts towards them. I did not and could not worry about anything other than observe, discover, and enjoy the occasion. A wise person approached me full of friendly smiles, and in a very regal manner said, "We would like to take you to one of our educational libraries, which in some circles are probably known to you as the halls of learning." He gave me the impression of being an educator, and I could easily understand what libraries would be like, but I was unfamiliar with the concept, the halls of learning, for until then I had never heard the term, and was very curious. Maybe, I thought, they were higher educational institutions like the universities we are familiar with. Was it perhaps a place like a lecture hall? Hopefully, I was not offending anybody by thinking this way. I heard the person accompanying me say, "Do not concern yourself much for now. You will have plenty of opportunities to rediscover things." Things were indeed becoming more intriguing and more interesting. As we wandered on, I noticed strange-looking buildings displaying architectural excellence, without roads and highways we are accustomed to seeing. I became aware of an endless number of tubular structures gloriously shining under the diffused light. We stood in front of an opening, which reminded me of a gate unlike the ones we are familiar with on Earth. Imagine the end of a tunnel suddenly appearing in mid-air in front of you, which obviously extended into distances far. This unusual entry looked like it was made of multicolored lights, yet solid to touch, and, in the same time, so soft that one could not accidentally hit oneself and get hurt. It was certainly very inviting for the adventurer. I thought something as wonderful like this could probably only happen in one's dreams, and again, I was going to enjoy it nevertheless. We traveled in this unique tubular structure for a while, never sitting on anything, instead floating within it, twirling, turning. It was delightful and exciting, and the sensation was unexplainable. It felt as if we were gliding on a cushion of air. I was shown how everything had originated within this and other universes, how everything came to being, from the smallest particles to complex organisms, but everything was based upon a variety of energy forms. I wondered if one could make a theoretic suggestion for the scientifically minded to ponder upon. Maybe some quantum physicists could be persuaded along those lines, or were they already knowledgeable about this? The colors I observed while floating within the tubular structures of light, and the open spaces wherein were displayed galaxies, star clusters, and worlds, presented a magnificence of incandescent lights. They were so numerous and very hard to describe within the limited vocabulary of any known language upon earth. I can therefore make mention of only a few in a very limited fashion. I found the formation of those galaxies and planets to be exciting to watch, but the development of life, particularly the intelligent kind on those worlds, from one-celled existences to more complex ones, like the humanity we know of, topped it all. I have been shown how the thought universe gave birth to the development of different energies, affecting the alignment of building blocks to form the material universes. There was mention of different mechanics and principles, but my attention was directed to the magnificence during my journey. Those universes were in pockets, or parallels, displaying either similarities or opposites depending on the polarity of the original building blocks. However, without the groundwork it was very difficult to understand the complexities of cosmology. I was told that there were so many things unknown on my world, and the importance of open-mindedness was emphasized. I concluded that I was not the only one needing to learn so much more, and indeed mankind needed to accept that possibilities existed. Many of the worlds in different regions of galaxies were inhabited with different modes of evolvement and history. There were worlds which were abandoned due to various circumstances, and many of the original dwellers of those planets have migrated to distant worlds to continue with their lives, which could explain the existence of so many races on Earth. Some of the other recesses of the universes were considered, and how those humanities occupying other worlds have developed and evolved was a subject of intrigue. It was equally exciting to discover the existence of connections amongst the parallels of those multitudes of other universes and life-generating components similar to black holes, as also observed by Earth's scientists. There were highly and scientifically advanced people, capable of producing elements to create the right environment where an organic automatons could be produced. But it was a science the world was not ready to accept yet. That was still to come, when humanity was able to produce robotics. There were also many advanced people traversing within the intergalactic continuum and beyond, which known humanity was yet to discover. I was shown groups of peaceful and wonderfully colorful people living and working on extraordinary projects in manufactured worlds, unusual planetary existences, and their unique populations, lifestyles, and standards. I was told that they did not follow any particular plan, but their own creative prowess. There were inventors, planners, and doers. The known universe had its secrets as far as Earth was concerned, and humanity was creating and reinventing itself. Once they discovered healthier lifestyles through their own sciences and started living in peace with each other, not as separate nations, but as a whole human family, and their lives normalized to a decent amount of years, meaning hundreds of years, for genetically they were capable of doing so, they would achieve more creative and inventive states of evolvement. One of the culprits of humanity's downfall was due to their lifespan being cut shorter than necessary. When they lived healthily for a longer time, they would comprehend the complex processes of life's continuity in other dimensions of the multi-universe, knowing that they are primarily energy and thought. Once humanity was evolved as originally envisaged, they were to discover some of the secrets of the universe, and many truths would become available within their own physiognomic makeup. They would then be assisted by others living in more advanced states to perfect their knowledge. However, for now they needed to wake up to reality where no man-made religion existed. They would then see all their experiences as part of their development, and the futility of their current fighting efforts would be understood. Only then would they be able to stop repeating their history. Only then would they understand that there was no death, and it was all but a great continuum. The machinery of the universe was always evolving. It was breathing, viable, and long-lasting. It was always changing, and the awareness of all living beings were realized, no matter what level of evolvement they presented. Wherever they were within the material universe, or at whatever distance from one another, there was always energy and movement, and their existence was always aware, always conscious, on an individual basis. An amoeba or cat, bacteria or plant, and the human is identified by a type of consciousness which develops the state of energy needed for the creation of necessary ingredients, from atomic units to gigantic planets where life begins, will always be present. Consciousness equates to being alive, no matter in what form or dimension. All human-like existences have their reality dreams. By thought alone, they can influence the energy formations which make quarks, thus protons, and other important elements. They can be activated by the energy which makes thoughts possible. Atoms and molecules can be affected by the same. By thought alone, the right environment can be created, wherein those molecules can be perfected, and adaptability programming effected. There is an intelligent awareness that always is and continues to evolve throughout the cosmos, and therefore it is important to consider the reality of thought energy. However, that intelligence awareness is not identifiable by concept of God, and certainly not an individual God as understood. It is something that all movement, all energy, and all awareness shares. It is humanity's absolute puzzle, currently being considered as the unknowable darkness and emptiness which humans are incapable of seeing because of the lack of much-needed wisdom. But that emptiness is not empty. All aspects of physical reality, from one-celled creations to a huge variety of complexities, have originally been caused to be and made possible by the same energy which started the creation of the base materials utilized for evolutionary processes. Every human thought is vitally important for each human being, contains the source, and therefore the ability to will and command the elements like magnetic attractors